Lay outside on one of the benches with a nice warm blanket. It's all the
You good to go? Preempt your Milt for Committee of Adjustment meeting. And then I'll throw it over to you when I'm done. Call this Committee of Adjustment meeting to order, and I remind members to disclose any pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. And hearing none, I'm going to ask for an approval of the agenda. Todd and Smokey, all in favor? Done. And we have minutes to approve from, what date was that? February the 10th, 2025. Mover and a seconder for that. Milton Todd, all in favor? We're good. And so we have the agenda coming up, and next in the agenda is a public meeting for the file number A-2025-024. This is a public meeting being held under the Planning Act. First, we'll receive a report from our planning staff. Then committee members will have an opportunity to ask questions of a technical nature. And I will ask them to reserve their comments on the application until after we have heard from the public. Then we will hear from members of the public, and comments may be made in person as part of the public meeting or in writing submitted to planning staff. After we have heard from the public, the committee will discuss and consider recommendation on this application. Just a brief note here. Please note that the Planning Act limits appeals of Committee of Adjustment consent applications to the Ontario Land Tribunal, to the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, public bodies, and specified persons being utility and transportation companies. So I'm going to declare the public meeting open, and we now have our planner here, Megan Stansfield. Give us a report. Take it away, Megan.
Thank you. So this minor variance is for 179 Spry Shore Road. The applicants are the Sailors, and they are proposing a reduced minimum interior side yard setback. They're proposing in addition to their side of their existing dwelling. So the proposed the zoning bylaw requires a minimum side yard setback of 3 meters, and they're proposing a side yard setback of 1 meter in the back corner and 1.6 meters in the front corner. I'll quickly go through the 4 tests of the minor variance. The property is designated rural recreational in the county official plan, and the rural recreational designation permits residential dwellings, residential uses, and this addition is a residential use, so it is permitted within the for the intent and purpose of the official plan. Whether or not the variance maintains the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, the zoning is R2 or resort residential. Again, there's a required 3 meter setback for minimum side yard setback. And the proposal is seeking a side yard setback of 1 meter and 1.6 meters. The purpose of the interior side yard setback is to maintain privacy between 2 properties. Both existing properties have a significant vegetation barrier between the 2 properties. In the proposed addition, there's very little windows on the side facing the adjacent property, so that privacy is still going to be maintained. Whether or not the application is desirable for the appropriate development of the land, building, or structure. The applicants are proposing this addition to basically ensure that they have more accessibility of the main floor of this house. There's not really any room to add onto the house on either of the other directions because of septic, accessory building, and accessory structures. So this is sort of where they're limited to develop. And it represents an appropriate form of development. Whether or not it is minor, Again, we are evaluating this in terms of the impact on the proposed development, whether it is expected to impact the neighborhood, and there's not expected to be an impact on the neighborhood. So the variance is minor. We didn't receive any comments from the municipality. The historic Saugeen Métis had no objections, and the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation asked that an archaeological assessment be completed as the property is within an area of high archaeological potential. I'm recommending approval. We also didn't receive any public comments. I'm happy to take any questions, and the applicants are also here.
Any questions from our committee members? Hearing nothing, members of the public or their agents or the applicants have anything to say? Hearing none, is there anybody online?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Anderson. Currently, there is no one attending online.
Okay, so carry on. I think we're good in that respect. Yeah, any last chance for questions of Megan? If not, I'll declare the public meeting closed. And we do have a recommendation from Megan to support the resolution, so I'll entertain a mover and a seconder for that. Milt, Todd, all in favor? There we go. Thank you, Megan. And we have any other business? Hearing none, I'll ask for an adjournment, motion for adjournment. I'm on. Todd, all in favor? Passed. Over to you, Milt. Carry on.
Yes, Megan, do you have something? Okay. All right. All right, we will call our council meeting to order for August 25. Reminder to council to disclose any pecuniary interest or general nature thereof.
Milt.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
I will, as a commissioner of the NEC, I will not participate in the discussion or vote on report 2521, the NEC plan amendment, just as a precautionary.
Sounds good. So noted. Approval of the agenda. Todd, along. Any questions on the agenda? Call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Two sets of minutes were on item number 3, special council meeting for August the 11th and regular council meeting for August the 11th. First, we go to the special. Todd and Rod? Any questions on the minutes for August 11th, special council? Call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Regular council for August the 11th. Smokey. I'm on. Questions on August the 11th, regular council? All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Public meetings? No public meetings today. Special education session. Item 5, Bruce County Senior Planner, Jenn Burnett. Rate Planning 101 and ARU training session. Welcome, Jenn. We always need a little refresher.
I like the word special.
We always need a little refresher in this planning. Take care.
Thank you. So, good afternoon. Thanks for having us today. We're always very happy to have an opportunity to talk about the plan.
Thank you. So I've got an outline up there. And as it indicates, we're just going to start with a quick explanation of the purpose of the meeting. I'll introduce our team, give you some application statistics specific to the municipality. And we'll talk a little bit about the application lifestyle to give you a better understanding of the process that the residents or developers in the municipality are going through when they're moving through the application stages. A little bit of information on the study process, because that's a big part of the application process. And then just a brief overview of council or committee decisions. And then we'll finish up by just identifying some projects moving forward. So next slide, please. Sorry. The purpose of the meeting. So really we're here today to just give you an update on application activity in the municipality. So we've got some information there for the 2024 application totals, as well as what's been submitted to date in 2025. Really to explain what happens with an application before you see it, and we'll finish by discussing, as the outline says, the requirements for the county official plan and what happens after that's approved. So the next slide shows our team. And it's the Wyerton hub that provides planning services to the municipality. And you're familiar with Megan and myself because we've come a fair amount. The other people that are on our team are Laura Mansfield and Paulette Weaver. And Lori is pretty much the first point of contact for your residents. So when they contact the office or they come in, Lori is typically the one that's there to see them and to provide information on how to get the process started. And then Paulette, she's been with the county for about 20 years, and she's the one that does most of the mapping. So any of the zone bylaw amendments that you see, as well as the official plan amendment schedules. Sorry. She's the one who prepares all that. She also prepares the any new schedules for when you create a new zoning bylaw or an official plan. She's the one that's creating those schedules. So she does have some interaction with your residents. There's sometimes where there's parcel lines that aren't aligned properly. Paulette is the one that will meet with them and discuss some of their concerns and let them know whether or not that can be fixed. So we're pretty much the four key members that will interact with residents in the municipality. So the next slide shows planning activity in the municipality over the past 5 years. So back in 2020, the county brought on a different system, CityWorks, and so our statistics are typically from 2020 because that's when that new system came into effect and we started using it. So that's given us the ability to provide you with some numbers just to show you the change in application numbers over the years. So what these statistics show is that there is a healthy interest in development in Northern British Peninsula. If we look down to the bottom line, you see the number of inquiries that are being submitted each year. And people are asking about development in the municipality. So they're asking about subdivision development, lot creation. We get inquiries asking about rezoning for commercial uses. Minor variance is like the one that was just approved for building additions or even from dwellings in some of the situations where they need to be, located away from an environmental feature, in order to be able to build. So we see a lot of inquiries that then turn into the applications. One of the things I want to point out is that planning is cyclical in nature, really. So, some of the numbers that are appearing on there, you'll see in 2023, there were 4 severance applications submitted. In 2024, there was 7. And then so far this year, we've had 4. So, one of the things that impact the applications we receive is how well the economy is doing. Whether the developer has a project planned. They might have already submitted projects because these projects take a number of years. So our applications could be high one year because we received a number of applications, whereas the next year the developers are still working through those projects. So they wouldn't necessarily be submitting applications. So that's what we have to keep in mind when we're looking at our numbers. We'll look over the long term to see that we've got consistent interest, evidenced by the number of inquiries that we're getting. And then we tend to see, a year or two later, we'll see corresponding number of applications being submitted.
Jen, do you want questions as we go or at the end?
Anytime. Yeah.
So the subdivision, the interest in subdivisions, where are they mainly? Like within the built-up areas or out in the rural areas?
Yeah, it's more so the infill in the existing settlement areas. One of the things, since I started in 2023, I've had one discussion with someone who was interested. They had a 100-acre lot, but it's just not. It's not an option to create a subdivision in a rural area. The policy doesn't allow it. So the majority of the interest is in the existing settlement areas.
Is there such a thing as estate development? Like there used to be estate lots many years ago and out in the rural area. Is that an option or is that a taboo?
Typically, it's not preferred.
Okay.
There are, when it comes to subdivision development in a rural area, it is policy doesn't really permit it. So you're looking at the development within settlement areas, and there are density requirements that have to be met. Typically for fully serviced subdivisions. For privately serviced subdivisions in a settlement area, you have to demonstrate that they can be serviced. And so the cost of developing the subdivisions means that the developer has to create a higher number of lots. And so creating the larger estate residential lots isn't profitable. And it's not, from a planning perspective, something that we want to encourage because it contributes to sprawl. So, and in the end, municipalities are typically in favor of them because instead of having 10 houses along a certain stretch of land, you might have 5 or 3, and then the municipality is maintaining a roadway for 3 houses, which is expensive. That's correct. Well, it's just private services, so typically well and septic. In a rural area, municipal policy doesn't support development in the rural area. We have a limit of lots that can be created, like through the severance process. So the county policy permits a maximum density of 3 lots from the original, say, 100 acres. And that would be the original lot plus two lots being severed off of that original 100 acres. And then doesn't permit residential lot creation really for an agricultural lot.
So
That's correct. Without full municipal services, yeah, your options are increasingly limited for development.
It's not that it's not. That's the built up area. It's. That is a lot. It's- Okay,
Thank you.
You need to- you need something that long pointer. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Jen. Yeah, I just, yeah, we're just having some public meetings on servicing coming up. So it just. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
I guess I have another question too. And maybe it's in the wrong place, but it's regarding peer review. And so the people we have are north-south environmental. So the reason for that is because the county, we do not have the qualified personnel to review applications. Is that the reason or? Yes, okay, sorry, Tejra, yeah.
I'll put it to, I'll address that at that slide.
Okay,
if that's okay. Right. So with the statistics here, I also wanted to let you know, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but the planning department did put out a mid-year update for 2025, just showing the number of applications and just the general activity that's been happening across Bruce County for the first part of 2025. So if you're interested in seeing, what the other municipalities, the numbers that they're seeing, that's available in the report. And there's a little bit of a discussion about activity that's happening. So it's a short read and it's nicely presented. So something good to look at. The next slide shows just the application life cycle, and this is just included as an attempt to answer one of the questions that came up with the Green Acres subdivision file. So that question was why isn't council why do we only hear about the application at the public meeting? Why don't we know about this beforehand? And the short answer to that is primarily because inquiries are confidential and they are hypothetical. And until we actually get an application that's submitted, we have nothing tangible to evaluate. So if we, part of the process, like when you're submitting, for example, a plan of subdivision, it's going to take you at least 2 years from the time you have a meeting with the county and municipal staff to the time that you submit your application. So a lot could change in between then. Like we've seen subdivision developments, across Grey and Bruce County initially proposed at say 100 lots, and then they do all the studies and then they can only get 50 out of it. So it's it can be an entirely different application by the time it actually comes before council. So we start with an idea and some concepts, and then through the inquiry stage, we move to an information meeting with with county and municipal staff, and that's where look and we evaluate the merits of the application. Are they going to meet policy with what's being proposed? How do we determine if it does? So what studies do they need to submit to us to substantiate that what they're proposing can actually be built out? So when we see that there's merit in the application, there typically is further consultation, like formal consultation that needs to be undertaken. So that would include more formal meeting with other agencies like the Ministry of Transportation or the Niagara Escarpment Commission, depending on where the property is located. And each of those agencies puts forward a list of criteria that the developer the owner needs to submit to make a complete application to demonstrate that what they're proposing should be approved. The process and study requirements have been identified. The owner and the consultants then take however many years they need to do the study, and the studies, it would be like environmental impact study, a stormwater management plan. They need to do a soil study. They need to look at the hydrogeological aspects of the land. And sometimes those studies that they initially do are used for design. So there's a lot of back and forth on their end to get that concept developed. And sometimes there's it's completely revamped, and there's times, like I've mentioned, it can be downsized substantially. And sometimes we don't see the developers come back because they've gone and they've done a certain level of assessment, and the project is too expensive. So it's not worth their time or their money to proceed any farther. So that's another reason why applications come to council when they're complete, and that we don't bring forward concepts or say, hey, they're looking at developing this in this area. So
yeah, I can appreciate that, and I know exactly what you're saying there. Just, the one thing is there's just not that role from the public. Yeah, I mean, they go through all the hoops and everything like that. There's got to be somewhere where we can get. I mean, we do have a public meeting, but at that point, is it not too late to put the brakes on everything? I guess I'm just trying to say, how could we get council input into something like that? Pre them showing up with this idea and let's go type thing there. Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons too is that go through the process of developing an official plan, the designations that are applied, across the municipality, they have permitted uses associated with them. So one thing, it's important for residents to be involved when there's a new official plan coming into place, or when the county is creating a new official plan, because that process tells them where we're directing development. So this is where local council wants development to go. So anybody who moves to a settlement area can expect to have intensification or additional development within the settlement area, because that's where the province is directing growth and development. So if you move to a rural designation where you're surrounded by 100-acre farms, you can expect to have a farming operation and to have the livestock at certain times of the year. So the official plan are really important documents, and that is one way of letting residents know, if you're here, you can expect more growth and development. The other thing is that with the larger applications, sometimes what we see is there's a requirement, especially where the applicant has to get other permissions or other approvals, like maybe from a provincial approval. There will be a requirement through a different process to undertake open houses and public meetings, so that they're able to inform the area residents of what's being proposed. So we see that where there's battery energy storage systems being proposed, anything to do with energy. Was the other one? Pits and quarries. Thank you. And so then through our process, we only have the ability to notify people through the public notification process associated with the Planning Act application, and that doesn't get triggered until we actually receive an application. So
Well, if it's allowed, let's just talk about, I'm assuming the application and henceforth that ended up being approved of 5 lots on a property that was originally only 2. And I think all of us had concerns about it. We did a public meeting. There were public concerns about it. But yet, the process ended up allowing the creation of 5 lots. And I mean, at this point, I'm looking back, and Rod, I am assuming you're doing the same thing. We're thinking, how, like, these concerns about that area were brought forward. We had people here concerned, we had people moving, I think, because of it. And yet we felt that we were unable to have any input into it. And I guess it just brought us forward. It was one of the few situations where I feel that we were not able to put our own or the public's interest into the result. And I don't know, I mean, we're at this point, we're backtracking, it's been approved, whatever, but where would we put our concerns about that? Rather, that's what we're getting at right here. Where do we put concerns to something like that? And it was obvious from the public in the area that they had concerns regarding it as well.
So primarily it starts with your official plan. So where your official plan policies, to be clear, is addressing infill development. So maybe there, we could look at criteria for infill development. At the public meeting, there were a number of concerns that hadn't been addressed, and the developer did work to address those. So there was quite a lapse in between the public meeting and then the time that the application came back to council for a decision. So that's another thing where, I think in the next slide, we've got an explanation of the study process. So what we're really trying to do with the studies is, once the developer goes out and undertakes the study work, we get them peer reviewed, and we have, everything sorted and clarified before the application gets deemed complete and then circulated for comment. So your official plan, and the county official plan, tells us what council and the residents of the municipality want in terms of development. So in order for us to recommend refusal of an application, the official plan policies have to be clear on the criteria, for the development. So for that specific application, it's infill development, and they did the studies to show that they could develop the lots, subject to certain mitigation measures. If they zoned, the majority of the properties were zoned not for any alteration or development. They have fairly small building envelopes and then drainage requirements. So there's policies in those documents that tell us how to evaluate the merits of an application.
I guess the real issue with that property is, and you hear, maybe things differently than are presented in a public matter, what's happening there. But if any of those lots happen to be STAs, which they may be, the municipality's role in being the policing in that area is of prime concern, I think, to us. We do not have, the staff that's, and it's just going to put us in quite a situation. So that process, it's done. I guess I'm looking for answers to if that happens again, how really we went from something that was allowable for 2 properties to 5 properties to a situation where obviously if these things aren't made crystal clear to owners, that we're going to end up in a situation where we're policing these areas. And that's not something I think that in the future, is going to, it's going to have an impact on that area. But so I guess for us, it's just looking at things like that and what we can possibly do differently or whatever that I'm concerned with.
What that property, what was it zoned? Was it PD or what was it zoned prior to this proposal? I believe it was 7 lots was approved there, I think.
Yeah, it was 7. It was zoned rural, a portion of it, and then the rest of it was in R2. And there was some environmental hazard on it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So it was just RU1 or R2?
I think it was R2 because it was a shoreline.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it just becomes, because you get somebody else who's got 100 acres and they want a second laneway and they're told, no, absolutely not. And yet because it's hard to explain the ins and outs and how that is possible. And you've got 100 acres and you can't put a second laneway in it, and yet we're taking, one of these lots. But anyway, thank you for your answer. And we've looked at it through and through, but it's something that I think we need to be aware of in the future. And
yeah, just sorry, go ahead, Rod.
Well, if I can just build on that, I think what we want is to get into this loop before it gets out of control somehow. But it sounds like, by the mere fact that it's part of the official plan, it's sort of taken for granted that we've been in that loop, and then we've sort of rezoned these things, and then that's where it sort of falls apart. Because I'm sure if we'd been back at the study stage, and it probably would have been a lot different than it is. So I mean, you would have got our feedback, and so was
but the lot creation was in our realm. Like it had. The creation of that many lots was in our purview, so to speak.
Well, the lots were based on the studies that were submitted or that he completed. And
that's correct.
Exactly.
That's what they showed that would handle many lots.
Because I think he did explain that there were a number of more lots proposed initially, but by the time they did the environmental impact study and the servicing, they had to decrease the number of lots. So, and 7 lots per subdivision is a very small development. So,
yeah, Jim, but just a question. So, on any land, you can inquire or put forward an application on any land, can't you? So, and then you look at the official plan policies and determine whether you are going to recommend approval of it, and blah blah blah.
Yeah, we typically like to start with the inquiry stage,
yes,
just so that we have an opportunity to look at the policy and give people some direction. Because if there's something that we are not going to be able to support, we don't want people spending money and time, doing the studies and the site design when we're going to have to recommend refusal of it, because we're very well aware of how expensive it is and how time consuming, and then the conflict that it creates when it comes before council. There are situations that I've had one in the past, and the applicant insisted, even though it was they were advised that it couldn't be supported by staff. They insisted and they wanted council to make a decision on their application. So there's an opportunity that would happen. We've got a very confident developer who wants to move forward against the recommendations of staff. So, but as always, our recommendations are based on what the policies are telling us that the municipality wants. So that's I think we're on the study process. So when we are looking at the studies, like we have a process that the application process that everyone has to go through. And when we get time for the meetings, the consultation meetings, what we typically do with the applicant or the developer is we establish terms of reference for the studies that need to be submitted. So at the county level, we have an environmental planner. One of our intermediate planners is an environmental planner, and he'll go through and on some of the majority of our applications, he will define the terms of reference with the developer's consultant, and that establishes what needs to be included in the study. And so the county official plan outlines a number of things that an environmental impact study needs to include. And so that's Jake. He'll go through and he'll say, you need to address this, this, and this. The property is located in this area, and the province puts out some mapping. And there might be species at risk there, so that your EIS should include that. You need to assess the wetland, though you need to assess the significant woodland, and then through that process, it helps to effectively narrow down what needs to be studied, and it creates a document that helps us evaluate the merits of the application on that specific property. Right. We do that also for, like, the MTO does that for any studies that they need. The traffic impact studies, they'll provide the criteria that they need the study designed to, and that addresses some of their concerns and gives them information on how the development is going to impact their infrastructure. We also see that with the municipality. So if there is a stormwater management system, then the developer's engineer will reach out to the municipality to say, what are your engineering documents? What do we need to design this to? And what are some of the municipality's concerns related to development in this area? Can you give us some history on the area? And then they move forward from there. The studies can take a long time for a number of reasons. So you might hear back from some of your developers or applicants that, we've been doing this for 3 years. In large part, it's because the studies, they take a long time to do. When you can't do the design of a subdivision until you've completed the EIS, because the EIS tells you where you can and cannot develop. So the person designing it needs to wait until that EIS is ready, and the engineer needs to wait until the EIS is ready, because they have got to come forward with a stormwater management plan for that development. And then, the civil engineer needs to design where the roads are going. So the length of time depends on the studies, and it's kind of like it's an involved process. Other reasons why we see a lag in the submission of the study for peer review is that the developer is responsible to pay for all of those studies. So if the developer, if there's any hiccups, financially, it'll bog down the amount of time it takes for those studies to be completed or to be released once they are completed. So we don't have control over what happens with the developer's consultants. And so, that level of frustration can be communicated sometimes, and it gets attributed to the whole part of this process. But really, for our purposes, we can only work with the submission once we receive it. So once we do get that study, we send it up for peer review. So we also employ North South, or we contract North South Environmental, and they do peer reviews on some of our larger projects. So they did the peer review for Island 72. It is it's a substantial development, and it required quite a focus, right? So it goes beyond like what our staff, the county staff, have capacity for. So we would send larger projects like that out to North South. We also do that where our environmental planner identifies that there are areas beyond his scope and experience to evaluate. So we'll send it off to somebody who has the qualifications to do that evaluation. Peer reviews on any of the engineering work, we would send to the municipality's consulting engineer, just so that we have consistency in the municipality. The consulting engineer for the municipality knows what's happening, so we don't want to introduce another engineer who may not be familiar with the direction the municipality wants to go. So we have, as part of our county process, we collect peer review deposits, and we would then use that deposit to pay the municipality's consulting engineer to review the application. And that is because that operates on, the idea that development needs to pay for itself. It shouldn't come out of, the municipal tax levy to pay for engineering work to be done in private development. So that way, the county is invoiced directly for the costs of the peer review, and that's settled prior to the application being closed. So the peer reviewers have a look. What they're doing is they're evaluating how the methods that were used to conduct the study. So does it align with how the county plan wants to see it? Did it align with the way that the municipality wants the work to be done? And then sometimes there's a bit of back and forth where the peer reviewers deal with the consultants and let them know if there's changes required to the study, or if they need to see some additional information just to substantiate that study proves that the development should be approved. And then once the peer review process is complete, then those studies are ready to be submitted to support an application. And so I did mention before, what we like to see is this peer review completed before an application is deemed complete, simply because that way we have all of the information available, and we're not in a position where that the decision be deferred because we need more information. Because it's quite often when you have long gaps between the public meeting and the decision on the application, you forget what it was about. You haven't had, certain. It's not a familiar application because it's sat for so long, so it has to be reintroduced, and that's not preferred by planning staff either. So we like to get as much information sorted before it's deemed complete and circulated for comments.
Jenn, just on the subdivisions, so we were just at AMO and there was a planning session there held. One of the questions was, how come everything, why can some of these studies be conditional? Like draft approval and conditional on completing those studies. But I guess from what you're saying, that does not, that you don't recommend that, or is that possible, or?
That's a question that we get a lot from the developers. There's a big push, just give us draft plan approval and make those studies a condition. Well, in order to support the application, we have to have enough information behind it to say it has merit. And then a lot of times, especially in areas where there's private servicing, there's no municipal services. You need to do the studies to show that the lots can be serviced, to prove that the lots should be approved at the size that they are, and to do the environmental impact study to show that you're not destroying critical habitat. So where you see draft approval go through subject to studies is often within an established settlement area where you're looking at infill or redevelopment, and there's existing infrastructure, and the developer just has to provide design drawings to specify what size of pipe that they're proposing to put in, and the municipal staff can assess that. Where you have studies that are required to demonstrate compliance with policy, need to be done before you can give draft plan approval to the subdivision. You have to prove that lot or that site can support the level of development that's being proposed.
And so that's the ministry's position, is it, Jen, or is that our county position?
It comes from the province as well as the county official plan. And the other thing that I've talked to developers about is that if you come forward and you get draft plan approval on a hypothetical, because that's what it would be, a hypothetical subdivision, once you do those studies and it shows you where you can and can't develop, then you have to come back for a red line revision. You have to revise the plan. And so you might be getting into a substantial revision where you lose 50 lots out of 100. And then you have to reconfigure the road network. So that's why, those are foundational studies. They support the basis of the project. By having them done at the beginning, it directs what you can develop. And it also helps to alleviate a lot of concern. So from neighbors, when they know that, if you live in a fairly low density area and you see a draft plan come in, say for 100 lots, but there's only 30 lots in your immediate neighborhood, that's a significant increase. And so you can alleviate that sort of anxiety for the neighbors by having the plans already, or the reports and studies done to demonstrate that's feasible. So.
Okay. I mean, I guess I get why they want to do that, just because the upfront costs are substantial. So in order to prove they can develop, I guess that's the game they're in. Yeah, thank you.
I guess the next slide is just previously when we were here talking about planning applications, we did have a slide talking about council's role, and really as you already know, you're there to provide an independent review of the application as it's presented, to consider the public interest when making a decision. Is this something that's good for the municipality? Is it where the municipality wants to grow? Is that what the official plan is saying that we want there? And base your decision on the planning policies and issues. So based on what the official plan and the provincial planning statement, supports. You're really wanting to evaluate these applications on their planning merit and not on emotion, which sometimes is hard when you have a number of residents in the room that are opposed to it. And it's understandable that if somebody's lived in an area for 30 years and then all of a sudden there's a subdivision development, it's not what they envisioned, or people have recently moved from a larger city. because they want the quiet and peacefulness of a more rural area. When they find out that there's a 20 lot subdivision being planned next door, it's it invokes a physical reaction and causes them a significant amount of anxiety. And so one of the things that it can be hard to do is look at the planning merit of the application, because it does seem kind of hard when you've got somebody who's visibly upset and you're looking at policy. So your response is, well, the policy says that we should consider this, right? So something to keep in mind, even though it can be challenging.
Jen, I think that is a good point you raise. Sometimes we do get caught up in emotion and rather than the technical aspect of it. Yeah.
The next slide is we have an application. Can you vote against the planning recommendation? And you can. Technically, yeah, you can. You're the ones that are making the decision on the application. And what you must remember is that provincial planning statement provides some direction on how you consider an application. And your decision must be consistent with the direction of the provincial policy. Provincial policy also influences the county official plan policy, and then that trickles down to the local official plan policy and gets implemented by your zoning bylaw. So there's kind of a number of checks and balances that are there for you to look at. But ultimately, you're the decision maker. And if you do recommend against a planning recommendation, Megan and I don't take that personally. This is, what we're here to do is to provide you with all the information that you need to make an informed decision. So one of the things that you have to do, though, is you must provide a reason for your decision. And it has to be it's supposed to be a valid planning reason, for if I'm recommending approval of something and you decide that's not in the interest of the municipality, then you would indicate your reason for approving the application. And you always have to keep in mind, as with any decision you make, it could be subject to appeal. So where planning staff make a recommendation and council makes a decision contrary to that recommendation, you would then be required to hire a outside planner to represent your position if it were to be appealed by the applicant. And slides is we're moving forward. Right now, we're still working on the county official plan, and once it's finalized, the process there is that it needs to be adopted by council, and then it gets sent to the province for approval. So that review and approval process at the provincial level could take a number of months. So we're halfway through 2025. So it might be the end of 2026, beginning of 2027, that plan is actually in effect. And also working on implementation of the archaeological management plan. And that is that's a plan that was supported by county council, I think about 2 years ago. And what it is that plan allows us to map out areas of archaeological potential throughout Bruce County. And those areas are areas that meet provincial criteria for investigation. So there's some identification that those areas may have archaeological significance. There might be some cultural or heritage value in the area. And the AMP, we call it the AMP, Archaeological Management Plan, it also identifies areas of Indigenous potential in SON's territory. And those are areas that they have asked us to make sure that when we have an application, that there is a level of investigation. So as you probably know, someone likes to be consulted. So once we know that there's an archaeological assessment required, then the applicant goes to SON. It typically hires one of their vetted archaeologists who conducts the investigation with like keeping SON's guidelines at the forefront, as well as provincial requirements. And then they're able to meet the satisfy the criteria, both province as well as SON. So what we're doing right now with that plan is we're working to develop criteria to identify which applications require archaeological assessments. Right now, it pretty much every application that's coming forward is requiring one. So we're going to work. We're going to work with SON to further refine the areas of investigation, as well as look at what the Planning Act says for study requirements for the different applications. So,
I was just going to mention, but now that everything is pretty well requiring an archaeology assessment.
Mm-hmm.
So will we ever get to the place where we will be looking at high priority areas only, do you think? Or
that's sorry.
Yeah, or do you think that SON is going to require this same?
Well, that's something that we're talking about. This like through this process is there's areas that really should be investigated, because we don't want to have a situation where anything of significance is destroyed through development or site alteration. Respect what's there. The province has criteria for identifying areas that need to be investigated as well. So we have to, this plan is helping us better organize applications and approaches and streamline the process. So through that, we're also creating supplementary material for the municipalities to use. So one of the recommendations in that plan is to create a document so that if there is an accidental burial find, then sometimes what happens is the individual will call the municipality and say, "What do I do?" Well, we've got like an outline of the steps that need to be followed, so the municipality would be aware of what needs to be done, and that way, having a like a pamphlet or an instruction sheet cuts down on staff time. It reduces confusion, and it helps get that find secured fast enough so that there's no further disturbance, and it can be respectfully further investigated. So we're going to in the process of creating material for the local municipalities. And then in terms of the municipality, there's some work coming forward for the municipality. So once the county official plan is in effect, the Planning Act states that you have 1 year to bring your planning documents in line with the county official plan. So we're aware that municipal staff already have this on their radar, and we are happy to help out where we can with those documents. So the next slide is just some useful resources. I think I shared this one when we were here before. As always, if there's any questions you have, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to answer any questions or get additional information for you. There's a list of useful websites on the last slide there that help you gather some information that if you want to do some research on your own.
And just on the updating of the official plan and zoning bylaw. I mean, even if we don't get around to doing that within the year, the new county official plan is the one that you follow anyway. It wouldn't be ours, would it? So,
Where there's a conflict between the two plans, the county plan would prevail.
yes, yeah.
But there's sometimes we like to have the local official plans and zoning bylaws updated as soon as we can, because what happens is it's the resident who ends up having to pay for the zoning amendment, because we don't have our documents updated. So that's why we want to be quick to get have a reasonable time frame. The Planning Act language is kind of strong there, where it says the county can make the changes, but we're not going to do that. We're going to work with you to get it done. So we're not going to turn around and say, hey, it's been here.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, if there's no further questions, this has been really a beneficial, I guess, hour almost, Jen, that we've had you explaining things here. So much appreciated on behalf of council and staff. And I'm sure we'll need a refresher in another year.
Sure. Anytime. We're happy to come anytime.
Or maybe sooner. Right. That's all. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to agenda items, and item A is a Niagara Escarpment Plan Amendment, and it's in Grey County, but it affects it, I guess. Well, the application is for a regional agricultural learning and demonstration facility. So I guess there's some interest in Merce County there. So the way it looks here, it's located at the museum site, Grey County Museum site. Yeah, so it's a good spot. We were in seconder for that. Todd and Ron. Any questions on A? All in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. Chief Administrative Officer report is B, request for municipal funding, Brisbane's virtual care. Staff are not recommending approval of this for various reasons identified in the report. Moved by Rod, seconder for that. I'm on. Any questions, comments on B? Call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. Chief Administrative Officer report again, municipal participation in a dredging project. Is Troy here? Maybe, or just is, I mean,
Mark is here.
Mark, you're the one, right? You're taking this one. Okay, so just give us maybe a little update on what I guess the benefits to us in this project.
So there is an existing channel that was dredged, whatever number of years back, sorry. There was an existing channel that was dredged in this area of Stokes Bay several years back. Naturally, over time, with fluctuating water levels, dredged channels can infill with sediment and or vegetative growth. So the stretch in front of the municipal parkland there is maybe about 18 inches deep of water. And the rest of the channel going out into the lake, I don't know the depth of. A portion of this channel was dredged out a year ago to our southeast, fronting private property, and I believe it's about 6 feet deep now. So it's Peggy's report in terms of explaining the proposal that has come in to refresh the dredgings to allow I guess, motorized boat access in along the shoreline to potential lots. And then from there, they've expressed interest in the landowners, including the municipality as a fronting landowner, helping support the cost of them continuing with the dredging.
Do we have access to the water there if we do?
Yes, we do. There is no established like hard boat ramp or dock. It's just a natural shoreline, slope shoreline into the water.
So presently, this is 18 inches deep, Mark?
In front of our portion, yes, approximately.
And what's the proposal suggesting, or?
I believe the interested party is making it the same depth that they've excavated, dredged out last year, being approximately 6 feet deep, the entire channel.
Okay.
There's no map here. Mark, can you sort of tell me? I don't know where we are or what we're talking about here. So give me a good descriptive.
So as you're driving into Stokes Bay, if you're to go left, Heron Point House is across the bridge. So you go right. I forget the name of the road, sorry, off the top of my head. You just go a short ways, maybe a half kilometer. It bends to the west. And it's before you get to the government dock that's further out on Stokes Bay. So it's a shallow bay. There is aquatic vegetation quite a ways out from the high water mark of the mainland. It's kind of a sandy, mucky bottom. It's not like white sand. It's not topsoil or anything like that. It's mostly a natural shoreline. As you go further west, there is more cottage development, lot development. This stretch tends to be more natural or undeveloped. We cut the grass on the parkland that's there. It's part of our grass cutting contract. We have a couple of picnic tables, but we have no other developed facilities on the parkland there. Some of that parkland was probably created through fill, you know, when dredging was done 50 years ago. So the original high water mark might have been further in closer to the road. So there, you know, the public, the municipal land portion there potentially serves residents in terms of water access. The private portions, it's for their own water access purpose and needs as those lots are developed. So
are we first in line, so to speak, or
we're
last in line?
We're in the middle section of the original channel.
Okay, so if we said no, we're potentially blocking half of it. Gotcha. Okay.
So is everyone asked to participate, Mark, or and are they? Or?
I believe that's the proposal. I can't confirm whether everybody's been approached or not. So.
There is no recommendation. There's that, but they're asking for direction here regarding this request. So, if somebody wants to put forward something, yes, Amon?
I put forward a motion to participate in the project, but I mean that we negotiate any appropriate agreements. I decided that motion already.
I would second that.
Okay. Any further comments? And negotiate what do you mean?
So I think
There's
With a maximum municipal contribution of 5.
yeah, but it states in the just allocated, given that all the legal permitting contractual requirements are satisfied.
Yep. All right. Okay. All right. Call a vote. All in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. Item D is the Licensing Appeal Committee, August the 11th meeting minutes. Mover and seconder for that, Todd? Rod? Any questions on the appeal committee minutes? All in favor? Opposed, the motion's carried. E is accounts. Mover and seconder for accounts. Amon? Smokey. Any questions on accounts?
I have a few things, but I'm going to send them
Okay.
to the clerk. But one thing I thought about need to be clarified, just because it's quite a bit of money, is on page 24 of the report, there's $143,617 to Superior Court admin tax sale expense. So just curious if that could be explained, because I'm sure it's quite a lot of money. And I'm sure it's something I just don't see, because I think the public would be concerned as well.
We can have the treasurer bring back a report on that one.
Okay.
There, it's a little intricate, then, so
It's a cost recovery.
it is, but we'll,
Okay.
we'll the treasurer bring back a report
Okay.
on that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions? And yeah, direct your questions to the treasurer, I guess. So Peggy? Yep. And call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Other business. Just a reminder that we have those public information sessions coming up on Wednesday. Tobermory is, I believe, 10 until noon or something like that. And Ryan's head in the afternoon, 1 until 3, or is it 1:30 to 3:30? Okay. Other thing as well is we did get an email this morning, and I don't know whether anyone had a chance to see that. I think Peggy CC'd council on it, and it was regarding the McCurdy parking lot. And
I did take a brief look at that.
yeah, and it was from a resident there expressing concerns. I guess they claim from a number of residents with regards to the ending of the paid parking on September the 15th. And that was council direction. But, you know, I think the person does have a point in this, that perhaps maybe there was that one could extend, because it's very busy. So we do staff it, Peggy, right until, so their concern too was that ratepayers are paying for something that the hikers should pay for. And so, and I don't know, maybe there's a couple or three of them, like Little Cove and Big Tub. I don't know what you think of them, but I would certainly like, I mean, I thought the original intent was for the village, the downtown areas, the business section of downtowns, was to kind of alleviate some of that. They were asking that it be brought back a little bit. So we did that until September the 15th. But I don't know. There's that area in particular, I think, should remain on until the Thanksgiving.
So you're suggesting McCurdy, Little Cove?
I would let council determine whether that's reasonable or not. But they're just areas that really are not affecting the downtown core.
And are busy. I mean, above and past September the 15th.
Yes, they are. Yes.
Well, and not just there, like I have to educate myself in the areas that we are doing this. I think one of our issues overall is that we have too many different jurisdictions in the area as far as the amounts. And when, like, we looked at each thing individually, and that had its merit at the time. But now when, you know, there are different areas that have different rules, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. But I I see some of the signs and whatnot are still also on the road going to Big Tub, so I'm just wondering, are we still stopping cars there or what we're doing there? Because I wouldn't think it'd be necessary anymore, but maybe I'm wrong.
It's based on an as-need basis, so there might be a Saturday when it doesn't look like it's that busy, and all of a sudden it does become busy, and we need to react fairly quickly with turnaround cars. We did know that on the Civic Long weekend that it was going to be one of our busiest weekends up here, due to the STA reservations, and all of our parking lots were full. Just with the reservation system, hence why we turn people around. But yes, we're going to start seeing that slow down now.
Yeah, because it just looks a little messy there on the corner, but, and just, people driving over, whatever. Yeah, okay. I'm up in the air on McCurdy. Like, honestly, I don't really know if we want to extend that or not, if it's that.
Well, if you're
And
not
maybe,
familiar with it, it's busy.
yeah.
And so
I'm familiar with the area. I'm familiar with the problems with it. I'm just not familiar with how, if things have really still been to that point.
oh yeah, they're busy right after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a busy spot. So just my thought, I'd like to,
What are the ramifications of doing that? Is there anything that we don't foresee that it can cause an issue if we change our minds right now?
I think for the reservation systems, it wouldn't, because we still have time to run the bylaw. We can bring a report for council for review to bring options. Currently, right now, our reservation systems, the only thing that would cease on reservation systems would be payment. People would still need to reserve for free parking in those areas. So we can bring a report back to council discussing options and potentially definitely, because if council wishes to amend, we'll have to do it probably the next meeting to at least keep in line with the September 15th deadline.
I would promote that.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Any other business? We'll go to correspondence, and we have two items there for information. A and B from MPP Vickers. So mover and seconder for information, Todd. Correspondence for information A and B. All in favor? Opposed, the motion is carried. We have two bylaws. Zoning bylaw amendment on Glacial Terrace and a confirmatory bylaw. Mover and seconder for the Smoky and Rod. Call a vote. All in favor? The motion is carried. Closed session. The council moving to closed meeting. The CAO, clerk, and legal representative in attendance pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. For the following reasons, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And this is a planning matter. Mover and seconder for that, Rod. Todd. All in favor? Motion carried. All right, reporting from closed session. Council met in closed session with the CAO, clerk, and legal representative in attendance to discuss advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And it was a planning matter. Council also approved the closed session minutes for August the 11th, 2025, and direction was given to the clerk. So that concluded our discussion in camera, and motion to adjourn. Smokey and Amon, all in favor. Carried.